So, with that brief interlude out of the way, say hello to the caves. And the first thing you might notice is that our little buddy floating on my shoulder there has actually changed its shape. Well, this little buddy is our mag, and you can actually feed them any of your healing-based items, and it'll increase their stats, like these ones here. I'm going to go into some rather detailed information about these mags in the next update, but for now, I'll just get the basics. Feeding them these healing items will slowly increase their level, and every time their level increases, it increases their stats, which in turn will increase your own stats. Mags are also one of the only things that can increase your base accuracy. With that out of the way, say hello to the basic slappies of this area, the shark family, starting with the evil shark. They act exactly like Boomas, with absolutely no exception. We also get a new enemy type in general, as these are considered altered beasts. So if your weapon has a percentage increase against altered beasts, you'll do a little extra more damage. You can't actually get resistances against the direct enemy types though, so other than the damage boosts on your weapons, they serve no other purpose. That said, there's a special color of blood for every type of enemy. Altered Beast is apparently cyan! Makes total sense, right? Another thing to note is my level's actually higher than when I finished the forest run. One of the main reasons for this being, I've actually had to change which servers I'm doing this on. At the time since the original recording of Forest, as the servers I was previously using, the Shidak ones, seem to be just not letting certain people connect anymore. The thing seems to be imploding, so I switched to the Ultima servers, which actually have a 3 times experience boost, which was kind of unexpected. But here's another enemy type, the Poison Lily. Keyword poison. Guess what robots don't care about? Yeah, that's right. The Poison Lily can cause the poison and paralysis status effects, both of which androids are completely immune to, so they can sit there and laugh all at once. Now, for the paralysis status effect, it will try to do this shockwave just like that, and it'll hit anybody that's in close range to it upon triggering it. It'll do this whenever it actually recovers from being hit, so it's usually a good idea if you're susceptible to paralysis to take them out from a distance. Otherwise, you'll probably end up paralyzed and end up having to burn an item to heal it. Overall, on this difficulty at least, the lilies can pretty much be ignored. It's on the hardest difficulty where they start spitting out balls of instant death instead. Fun times. But yeah. So, the caves is where we first start seeing kind of just like random layouts as opposed to the forest, which always kept the same general shape. The construction of the rooms and caves will vary drastically depending on the particular route that gets chosen. There's always these templated rooms, so there'll always be rooms that look the same, but just the way they're laid out, the path you take is going to vary depending on a few different layouts. So it's kind of an interesting way of going about it. It's not fully random, it's just a set of different routes. But overall, it's the same general thing. None of the routes are particularly different, it's just you'll encounter a few different enemies in one route. Not new enemy types, just different enemy counts. Also, if you leave a lily after doing enough damage, it'll go into this little suicide attack here. It takes forever to actually charge up on the first 3 difficulties, whereas on Ultimate it's pretty much just immediate. That said, on the first 3 difficulties, it's just paralysis, and in Ultimate, it's instant death. Also, this is a grass assassin. They try to breathe on you to lock you in place, but you can still fire your weapon. However, you can't do anything else with your weapon. You can't swap the weapon out for something else, so you have to make do with whatever you got stuck with. They'll also try to charge at you, but overall, they're actually one of the easiest enemies to deal with in the entire game, as if you so much as flick it in the nose, it goes into a ridiculously long pain state. Like, it doesn't really matter how much damage you do, the only time this won't happen is if they're charging at you. Even on Ultimate difficulty, they still have this problem. In the meantime, time to get the mag to chug some more antidotes. I'm gonna be using these for a while because accuracy is just so important in early levels. But yeah. While keeping track of when to feed your mag can sometimes be a nuisance, this particular server has a little feature. By typing /magtimer, you'll actually get a little pop-up message to inform you whenever your mag is hungry. This is quite useful. I used to use an external program to set off a little chime whenever the mag was supposed to be hungry. But the nice thing about this is since it's on the game itself, it's like really accurate. It will very rarely pop up when the mag's not quite hungry yet. So definitely very useful, since it compensates for things like changing maps and the like. Another thing added in the caves is the first introduction to the door switches. Now this one's actually a 4-person door, and when playing in multiplayer you would need a full party to actually access it, as the switches don't stay pressed. But in 1-person mode, or when playing offline on the GameCube, the switches will stay pressed when you step on them. Also, hello, Pal Shark. You're not my pal. I don't know why you're called Pal Shark, but you're just the same as a Gobuma. Slightly stronger than an evil shark. Different color. But I think it actually has the same elemental weakness, which is kind of silly. Now, a little more about the door switches. The worst you'll ever see in any route that's mandatory is a 2-person door. Now, what this does mean is that any stage that has these 2-person doors, you can't solo by yourself in online mode. Which can be a bit of a nuisance, because, you know, sometimes you just want to play the online version because it has more enemies than like. However, that won't always work out, so you have to be aware of which one of these stages will have just the door that says no to you unless you have a friend handy. Ah, now here's something to talk about in 2 different ways. First off, this is an unidentified item, thus the coloration of blue and the question marks. Also, it's a sword, which we hadn't seen up until now. The sword is an extremely handy weapon to have, as it can hit multiple enemies in its swing. It's more powerful than another option that hunters get for hitting multiple enemies, but it's much slower, as I was just demonstrating. It's not very fast in terms of attack speed. Also, that's a trap. We'll be seeing these a lot. Whenever you're not playing as an android, you can't actually see them, so they keep blowing up in your face all the time, and it gets very annoying. But yeah, the unidentified item has to be identified by the Techer back on Pioneer 2, which I'll talk more about when that shows up. But for now, we have another new enemy type, the Nano Dragon. It's not the most intimidating thing, but it does do a fair pack of damage. When you shoot at it, you'll try to counterattack with things like lasers. It also has homing shots, too. Those ones are a bit of a pain because you pretty much need to be lucky for them not to hit you. Now, they can actually hit other enemies, and if they kill that enemy, they'll actually get slightly larger and power up. But they don't do it very often, and they don't do enough damage to last hit the enemies very often either. Not to mention, the power-up isn't very significant, so it's not like it's going to do anything all that scary when it does such. But in the meantime, more mag feeding! This thing will eat you out of house and home. Trying to actually keep up with your mag's diet when you're first starting out the game is kind of difficult because they're so freaking hungry all the time. Just be thankful you're not using, like, expensive items when you do this, because most of the time you'll be wanting to start with accuracy, and since it's antidotes and anti-paralysis, they're both only 60% each. That way you don't have to tap into your funds too much. Although if you're a horse, yeah, good luck affording that, because you're too busy affording your own fluid addiction. Now, even though the stages are pretty much kind of random at this point, other than, you know, well, they just choose a random route that's constructed. Every area comes with its own, like, landmark room, like this one. This one will show up in every route of Caves 1, and it usually indicates that you've gotten about halfway through it. Definitely a nice little thing to know. Some landmark rooms are not as obvious as others, but they're still there. Now at this point I was trying to demonstrate that Nano Dragon could actually take out another enemy, but it was being exceptionally uncooperative. First things first, he didn't even want to shoot at me most of the time. And then the laser just keeps passing right through the lily. I know it can do this, but it's just a case of it's so bad at it sometimes. It's like it has to want to hit the enemy in order to actually hit the enemy. And even look at that, it shot an extra homing shot to hit the lily, but it just went off and did nothing. I was so determined to get this to work, but at that point it's just like, okay, I've taken enough damage trying to do this. That said, Nano Dragon still have lots of health, so it took a lot of extra shots. But yeah, I wanted to demonstrate it, but it was being too uncooperative to bother. Something quick to note about daggers is that you really should rely on these with the Hewcast seal and not the other types, as I've been just playing a little bit with my Uniworld that's a rather low level, and at the default attack speed, the enemies will usually get a swipe during, like, as you're charging up the second attack. The Hewcast seal is fast enough with daggers that they can use the second attack without getting counterattacked, but it was definitely being an issue playing as any other character type because the animation's so much slower on that second phase that enemies will just smack you in the face for trying it. Not exactly very effective. If you get them from behind, it works just fine, but this requires taking the time to try to get behind them, which can be a nuisance with some enemies. Also, here we have ceiling crushers. They're incredibly non-threatening as they go very slowly, and you can tell from a mile away when they're going to go off because of the little circles below them. Once all three become red, the next little phase will cause it to slam down and do insignificant amounts of damage. They're more an inconvenience than any sort of threat. Oh hey, another new minor obstacle. Dark rooms. In the vast majority of cases, dark rooms will have a light switch that you can go flick on. In this case, this one does the trick. Usually when there's not actually a light switch for the dark room, it's because you're in a quest that actually has it specifically set up like that. There's a couple exceptions here and there, but not many. It's overall not too threatening. Especially if you can see the switch when you enter the room. Sometimes it's a little hidden up. Well, hello there, rare enemy. This is an R-Lily. It's the rare version of poison lilies and will spawn like at a 1/256 rate or something like that. Rare enemies, the big thing about them is they have their own rare drop. Since this is normal mode, that Angel Mind is all it is nothing too significant at this time. But hey, they do give a huge chunk of experience since I'm receiving triple. But yeah, rare enemies usually have an almost guaranteed chance at dropping something rare. Which is rather nice considering you have to rely on them to appear in the first place. It's not guaranteed though, a lot of them are 50% chances, which can be a huge pain in the butt. Hunting rare enemies, usually you just want to pick a quest that has the most of those enemies. Like with lilies, it's the quest called Maximum Attack 4 for episode 1. Now, the thing about rare enemies, also that was a Gill Shark, it's just a Gigabuma. I don't really need to note on it too much. But yeah, the thing about rare enemies is that only certain enemies can turn rare. In the forest's case, the Rappies as well as the Hildebears have a rare form, but nothing else. And in Cave's case, the lilies, as well as an enemy that we're not going to be seeing until the second part, has a rare form. Also, that was a situation where you have a two-person door where the two people had to be in completely separate rooms, pretty much. Those will turn up every now and then. It's something to try and split up the party a little bit. Doesn't really add too much in terms of difficulty, but hey, it's there. And yeah, look, that laser just passed right through the Evil Shark. I swear, these things have to actually be aiming to hit the other enemies in order to actually damage them. At least that's what it seems like. One last thing to note about rare enemies is their stats are actually much, much higher than the regular enemy. So if you encounter this like really early on as you're playing this game, then it's going to take a long, long time for you to kill the darn thing. The rare lilies don't have too much extra health and are still just as non-threatening. But if you see an owl rappy on your first time through forest, you're going to be fighting that thing for a while, and it will be a significant threat because it'll actually do quite a lot of damage to you if you get hit, so you have to be careful. And if you see a Hildeblue, oh my goodness, that'll be a pain in the butt to try and deal with. Overall, it comes down to pure randomization, so you usually have nothing to worry about. And yeah, Dino Dragons are still very easily defeated. Now, you could run up and start hitting them with one of your melee-based weapons, but they really don't like that, and they'll usually try to fly off once you do such. So rather than just chasing them around the room all the time, it's probably a better idea to just shoot them with whatever you got. Oh, lilies. Yes, it's very funny, isn't it? Amusingly, once they get there, it's in death form. And then they don't actually laugh when the ball hits you. It just makes them so mean and cruel and whatnot. Also, despite how much this Meg is eating, I'm going to do the good thing and not go back to town every time I need to buy more Meg food, otherwise these stage videos would drag on forever. And, well actually, like, I could just cut it out, but yeah. No point in going back to town that often, especially since my pockets aren't even close to full yet. But yeah, this is the sword when it's actually working out, sometimes. Accuracy's still a butt. You can really control enemy groups with it just because you're hitting multiple at the same time, and it's a lot more efficient to use than single hitters for the most part. Just need the accuracy to be able to use it well. And holy crap, the statistic upgrades that the android hunters get. I'd like to get an extra 7 attack power in one level on my human world, but you know, whatever. That said, the Hyuka Seal still has the second lowest attack power of the hunters. So the Humara and the Hyuka still usually get a lot more anyways. Dang it, Crass Assassin, you're not threatening, just go away. Right here we have what happens to be the favorite sight of most people when they're running about stages, a healing ring. This will restore all of the characters' HP and TP, as well as refilling all of the androids' traps. This is very important, as these are usually used a lot more frequently than I've been using them, as in higher difficulties they're pretty much necessary for survival and will help your team out a hell of a lot more than a lot of other things will. So yeah, whenever you see those, just jump into them as quickly as you can. Because with androids at least, the only ways you can restore your traps are either by using the healing rings, leveling up, or going to the medical bay. You can't just eat an item for it like everybody else in their TP. So definitely something to keep in mind, and it really makes the limited number of traps seem more important than the limited TP of other characters. All that really causes is fluid addiction. Which really only becomes an issue for forces since they're using it all the darn time. At this point though, we've been through most of Caves 1, and while I would kind of want to include Caves 2 in this, I looked it over and I'm not making a 47-minute video for this one. Now, while I would usually go and empty out my items at the end of each area, you may notice the bar that's been filling in the upper left corner over by my level. It's nearly filled up, so I want to demonstrate what that does first, as going home will empty it fully. But yeah, that's all for now. So in the next update, I'll be talking about Megs, and then we'll be moving on to Caves 2. Thanks for watching!